Romeo and Juliet, Act 3, Scene 5. What I think is remarkable about this scene is Romeo and Juliet's lack of taking a risk to be together. In the cognitive dissonance that they feel upon the break of day and Romeo needing to depart, they try everything, every method possible to resolve it. They try to change their cognitions or thoughts. Juliet tries to change that it is the break of day in changing the lark into the nightingale. Or Juliet tries to add new cognitions or thoughts. She calls the light not day, but a meteor that the sun exhales. Romeo, aware of this game, tries to then trivialize it with "let me be taken, let me be put to death." But what they are not trying to do, what they are not doing to resolve it, is change their behavior. Why are they parting? If it is so painful, why aren't they escaping together? As Nietzsche would describe it, looks like they do not have an open horizon. It is said that the capacity of historians is to recapture the shifting expressions on those faces, which makes these things worth studying. Historians have recognized that on those faces, from the period of early modern England and the time of Shakespeare, those faces had the expression of uncertainty, as life had so many hazards. One such hazard was the event of a bad harvest, which was completely unpredictable. In the 1500s, there were many bad harvests, and one can understand why people, sometimes in their diaries they left behind them, are looking anxiously at the weather as the harvest approaches. Other sources of insecurity could be equally unpredictable. The high mortality rates of the period could pose a real threat. The worst circumstances would be the outbreak of an epidemic, usually an epidemic of bubonic plague. When an epidemic hit a city, as they periodically did, you might get 30% of the entire population dying within a period of months. So this was another hazard of life, which would periodically strike, devastating the households that were infected. Besides epidemics, though, there was also the constant threat of infectious diseases, which nowadays would be cleared up in a matter of days with antibiotics. This meant that death rates were fairly high for adults. These threats could hit the prosperous and the poor alike. And when it comes to accidental death, this was a period that had no life insurance. It was a period that had no pensions for those who were left behind. All of these somber realities add up to an environment of risk, threatening one's viability and survival, and that inevitably influenced people's mentalities. It's been suggested that people in this time period tended to value security and stability over change and growth. Their economic strategies in particular were often very defensive, designed to minimize risks rather than to maximize opportunities. In this scene, Juliet minimizes risk to the point of death or lodging in a grave. If all else fail, myself have power to die. And the nurse, Juliet's confidant, thinks it too risky to venture anything with Romeo, as it would have to be done by stealth. Since the case so stands, the nurse says, you'd better stay. You just better stay home and marry the man your parents have chosen for you. This is a world that understands Juliet's grief of heart and the loss of her Romeo, and Juliet's ill-divining soul, questioning if they shall ever meet again. This is a time period that understands Juliet. Art thou gone so, Lord, I husband, friend? I must hear from thee every day in the hour.